I've got more fans, but actually there's a lot of pages. So these are all court documents, and these are all yeah, just from over the past decade, almost decade. Okay, so yeah, a lot of them have been stapled because there's just too many. So yeah, there's a lot of fans. Yeah, I can turn these court papers into lots and lots of fans. But I'm going to show you how smart the judges are here in New Zealand. Okay, so this one's to do with the police. Look, is that familiar to you? The police, okay? And this is on the 8th of November 2021. Okay, so the police, that date, the 8th of November 2021, yeah, so they gave me speeding tickets last year on the same date. Okay, this is where this all ties in, and this is from the police. Now, what was this in regards to? This was in regards to my children. So I have 2 children, and they're both teenagers, and so yeah, this is related to my children and their grandparents. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of the information, but it all goes back to 2017 when the government decided to remove my children out of custody without my consent. Okay, so yeah, I'll take you through it. I'll read out my thread, what I wrote on my thread when I go back inside, because my computer's in there. Yeah, okay, so in 2017, so I wrote on my thread in 2017 basically how the government had removed my children without consent. Okay, now that was approved in August 2017 without my knowledge. Okay, so it was put into effect without notice, which means to basically not notify the respondent, which in this court situation was me. Okay, now this is what I received after an order to remove my children had already been made. Here we go. You see Lydia, and it's to do with my children, and here's the date, so August 2017. So my ex-husband's parents had applied to the court to take my children, who were at that time in his care. So the whole time my children had been with me, my in-laws had been trying to remove my children from my care for a very long time, and so they only managed to do so in 2017 by setting up my ex-husband and then removing my children from him without my knowledge, because they actually had no legs to stand on when it came to actually removing them out of my care. So I'm just going to show you how ridiculous the mentality of the New Zealand judges are to approve such things without actually doing the proper investigation and without a hearing and based on zero evidence. Okay, so they had zero proof. Yeah. Now the court files, there were I don't know how many pages there were, likely hundreds in total. So I've only been able to extract a few. I don't have much time to, you know, explain and read through all the affidavit information and all the little bits and pieces. This is part of the affidavit. Okay, so this is the front page that I've shown you before. This one here. Okay, to me. Now, the order was made without me even attending court, without me having a fair hearing. All right. Now this was part of the affidavit, right here. Okay. So this is only one page out of the affidavit, but the majority of it was actually false. Anyway, I'm going to show you how the judges decide to make these decisions in New Zealand when they decide to just remove children from parents, okay, without their consent. Okay, so this is from this judge here. So Judge A.E. Somerville, all right. So this judge here, all right, I'm just going to show you what he wrote here. Jurisdiction made out, threshold met, the father is suspected of dealing and abusing methamphetamine. The circumstances set out in the application are such that if the father is dealing and using methamphetamine as suspected, then the children are at risk in his care at any time and should be protected by an interim order in favour of the grandparents. Okay, so I had no idea about this information, and an order was made without my consent, without my hearing, okay, in favour of my ex-husband's parents, right? And this is the evidence I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what my ex-husband's father said in the affidavit. It says here, we do not have hard evidence that he is dealing drugs. So here in this affidavit, my ex-husband's parents are saying that they don't have any evidence that my ex-husband was actually dealing drugs. But a New Zealand judge decided that based on this lack of evidence, zero proof, make it make sense, because how do you make a ruling like that without evidence? Now, in the affidavit, there were no photos. There was no evidence whatsoever that my ex-husband was dealing any methamphetamine. You know, it's just about money. And then, so he's upset. My ex-husband's father got upset because of some money that got stolen. But still, that's not evidence that he's dealing drugs. And so that's not actually reason or proof to remove children when even the mother, who is me in this case, should be contacted. And not once did they contact me. So this was at the time that Bill English was the Prime Minister. So the problem with this situation is that I had already explained in my threads some of the things that had gone on in 2017. That's during the time that I was being stalked in 2017. Okay, so I had contacted the police back then, and yeah, I wrote about it on my threads actually. But yeah, this is what this judge came up with. Now, I'm going to show you just how, you know, they quickly made these orders, again, without my knowledge and without my consent. They removed my children from my ex-husband into their own care, and this was all approved by the Ministry of Justice, by a judge that had zero evidence as to why he should remove the children. And also, they should have contacted me, but they didn't bother to. So, yeah. So this was the interim parental order, where just prior to the courts approving the removal of my children without my notice and without my consent, they were meant to be in the custody of their father, who was my ex-husband. Okay, so this was made on the 10th of May in 2017. Okay, and that was going to be final. Where Where is it? That was going to be final on the 28th of July, okay, in 2017. Right, so right around that time, okay, his own parents, my ex-husband's parents, decided to go to court to take my children off him. So this was after the 28th of July, okay, so they didn't wait long to remove my children out of my ex-husband's care. Now, this was all in August 2017, and here we go, right there. So an order was made without my knowledge, so I didn't know that this was going on at the time, and that was approved by the Ministry of Justice. I've shown you the evidence, which was not evidence. Okay, so here is another judge. All right, so this judge here, this is where I'm showing you how sort of twisted the judges are here in New Zealand. So this judge is P. Whitehead, okay? P. Whitehead. Now, on the topic of P, where is it? On the topic of P, the paternal grandfather, who is a medical doctor, referred to methamphetamine as P, saying that my ex-husband occasionally uses P, right? So, you know, when I read this, I actually laughed. I'm thinking, why didn't they just, you know, hire someone, a judge named P. Crackhead? You know, they want to make this into a narrative about drugs based on zero evidence, based on zero police reports. And this was all without my knowledge. I don't do drugs, I don't deal drugs, and so this is such a joke, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm calling this judge P. Crackhead, okay? He goes by P. Whitehead, but, you know, since I want to make all these choices and decisions about children's lives without evidence, then yeah, I will change his name to P. Crackhead. So here, I'll show you what he wrote. This P. Crackhead judge, okay, this judge, P. Crackhead, he wrote this: I make the following orders in the best interest and welfare of the children on the formal proof of evidence. On the formal proof of evidence that is before me. Can you believe it? On the formal proof of evidence, the judge P. Crackhead decides to say that. There is zero evidence. Look, it says here, we do not have hard evidence that he is dealing drugs. And you know, if you look here, his problem is that his son stole $7,000. So what was this really about? Huh? So they want to go and steal my children, and the government decides to approve it without proof, without hard evidence, without any photos, without police reports. You know, it's just like, okay, so P. Crackhead, Judge P. Crackhead, okay, he decides to say that this affidavit, this statement right here that I'm showing you, okay, we do not have hard evidence that he is dealing drugs. It says he has told us that he uses P occasionally. This is a doctor referring to methamphetamine as P, okay? The New Zealand Ministry of Justice decides to assign P. Whitehead, who is now Judge P. Crackhead, okay, this case. And he says determined that best interest and welfare of the children on the formal proof of evidence. What do you need to be a judge in New Zealand? Do you need to go to university? How many years must you spend at university, take the bar, and then how many cases must you do in order to conclude and decide that you can make these orders and play with people's lives based on no proof? And then write that you've got the proof when even the grandfather, who was a medical doctor and a church authority at that time, just says that there's no evidence. So we've got a medical doctor, okay? A medical doctor who is trained, a trained general practitioner, as well as a judge, both deciding to make these court orders without evidence. No police reports, no photos, no hearing, and or without my consent or without my permission. So yeah, there's something wrong with the New Zealand justice system. Yeah, it's illegal. Judge P. Crackhead. This is a New Zealand judge. He's corrupt. You know, he needs his title stripped. He's a family court judge, making these orders, taking away children from mothers like myself and family without any evidence, and just doing that for whoever is trying to push that narrative, so relating to drugs, which I have nothing to do with, okay? Now, at the time, so 2017, this is after the election that year, which I've written about on my threads. So the Prime Minister at that time was Jacinda Ardern. And fun little fact, I actually used to live with her family when I was in high school. I was, I lived with her family when I was the head girl of my high school back then. But I'm not going to go into details about my high school because it was a religious high school. So, yeah. Judge P. Whitehead now turned to Judge P. Crackhead based on this case. Okay, so this is the order, the parental order that the courts here in New Zealand made in 2017, okay, without evidence and without notice. And so that had gone into effect in November 2017. Now, I hadn't received any information about the hearings for these until the time had already surpassed. So yeah, that's already illegal because you must serve the papers. Now, when they served me the notice about already making an interim parental order and removing my children out of my custody and my ex-husband's custody in 2017, it was already too late because they weren't asking for my permission. They just took my children based on hearsay and an affidavit that didn't have any evidence. So there's something not right with the Ministry of Justice here in New Zealand for them to actually do that. Yeah. Now this is just part of the paper trail. It's actually hardly any of the papers that I have. I don't have time to fold all these fans, okay? There's just too many pages and a lot of the pages are stapled, so yeah, it's a bit windy. So yeah, gotta move on. inside. Okay, so we're back inside. Yeah, exciting times. So I'm going to put on my spectacles. Okay. Oh, I put my spectacles on. Yeah, I'm going to use the computer, so I need spectacles. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Do I look smart now? What do you think? Okay. Right. So this is what I write on my threads. Okay. I write this on the 12th of July 2025. I wrote, please be aware that moving forward, no one can force me to repeat previous cycles already closed. This is referring to when the New Zealand government usurped my social media for covert political arrest, whilst weaponising the judicial courts against my family when they stole my own children without notice, without a justified reason for doing so, before the general election in 2017. Corruption. I said don't mind, but what do you mean? I am the one who will dance on the floor in a round now.